Let's look at the really big picture and put our professional existence in context. Our expectations today have evolved even from just a few years ago. The first and the biggest context is the consumer world in which we all live. I might term this the macrocultural context. We all understand what it's like to be consumers because we all are consumers ourselves. And as today's consumers, we just want what we want, and we don't want all the hassles that come with getting what we want. We also judge every product or service we receive on the entire process of getting that product or service, and not just on the product or the service on its own. That includes all of the touch points and interactions with the provider or the seller of the service, and everything in between. What we perceive as consumers is the total experience of getting that product or the service, not just the touch points for which the seller or the provider is directly responsible. Even the wait in between these touch points is an important part of the total experience, even if it depends on a third party not under the direct control of the seller. And as consumers, we want that experience to be smooth and kind of all in the background. Think about your favorite rideshare app, for example. Your rideshare experience is not just a ride, but starts at the latest at the time you ordered a ride. Then you can see when your ride is going to get there to pick you up. You don't have to call someone to ask when it's going to get there because you can see where your ride is as it's coming to you. Any changes and you get an alert. The app manages your expectations, and the app takes care of the payment. You don't think, okay, now I pay. You have an exact record of your ride, and you can even get a receipt. All of this happens without you having to do anything other than just ask for the ride and actually riding. You don't think about any of these details that make the ride happen. So services that are successful today proactively manage the entire customer experience and have a holistic approach to managing it. There are very few necessary evils anymore. Frictions and nuisances were once tolerated as annoyances because, well, they were considered to be part of the price you pay to get what you wanted. But today, they are so far outside of the expectations of a typical consumer. We are also more connected and more aware about a lot of things. It's easier to find out about almost anything these days because of things like social media and internet searches. Information and reputation travel fast. Things can go viral very quickly. It's all instantaneous and easy. This is all very important to understand because it means that service providers no longer compete on just a service or even price, but they compete on the total experience of the customer. And this is going to be true whether you are a large corporation offering something of value to a consumer, or if you are an individual contributor working with other professionals. Now, within this consumer world context, often there is an organizational context. That organization could be the employer you work for, a group of organizations, or a group of individuals you work with, or any number of other organized situations. And organizations have evolved over time. They are becoming more cross-functional with smaller and more agile teams. They're often logically centralized, but at the same time, they're becoming flatter and more distributed. So the moving up the ladder idea that we may have traditionally held is less relevant today, and even going away in some cases simply by the virtue of this flattening. This also means that the whole notion of power and control, so to speak, is being redefined. It is not the reporting lines or authority by structure, but rather how much influence you have on people. This is obviously a lot less tangible than what you can see on an org chart. Then our functional existence is in the context of these consumer and organizational contexts. Now, it's become fashionable to be not just experts, but specialists. Everybody wants to be known as someone who has deep expertise, and in our case, that's technical expertise, and often in just one thing. On the other hand, our world has not kept up with providing clarity about the scope of each function as the expectations continue to evolve. To make matters worse, there continues to be a strong tendency to confuse roles with skill sets, so responsibilities are often assigned purely based on the skill sets of the individuals rather than what roles we need these individuals to fill. These contexts frame our experience, and more specifically, the experience of other people working with us. I submit that humans don't see experiences as a collection of discrete independent events, and that we can't separate our professional or functional experience from all other experiences we have as living humans. This has important implications. So, what are the implications of these contexts? Well, first we need to recognize that every single one of us is a consumer. And since our clients and colleagues are also consumers, we can't avoid being compared against their every experience as consumers. Having the right product or service on content alone is no longer enough. Having better data doesn't win on its own. In fact, the best data, the best statisticians, the best analysts, the best developers do not win. We're now competing on the total experience of working with us. In the minds of the consumers, it's easy to make the product or service non-essential if the negative experience outweighs the benefit. It doesn't matter if this product is something fashionable or even the right thing to have, be it data, statistics, analytics, data science, or technology. Consumers are willing to accept a suboptimal product or service if it means their total experience is better, much more often than perhaps we are willing to accept. In short, consumers don't decide on what to consume based on the quality of the product or the service itself. Instead, consumers essentially pick the best available path of least resistance. Daniel Kahneman, who won the Nobel Prize for his work in behavioral economics, talks about the law of least effort in the following quote: "If there are several ways of achieving the same goal, people will eventually gravitate to the least demanding course of action. In the economy of action, effort is a cost." What this means is that people will make choices based on the balance of benefits and costs, not just on the benefits. That's what we're competing with. Harry Beckwith is a well-known author on sales and marketing. He says, "Prospects don't try to make the best choice. They try to make the most comfortable choice. Rather than trying to be the good choice, eliminate everything that makes us a bad choice." This is a very different mindset from how we often think of our work and its value. There's a fine line between being good and not being bad, or doing positive things versus not doing the negative things. We're kind of wired to think about giving our clients reasons to say yes. But we have to focus on not giving our clients reasons to say no, however small and trivial those reasons might seem to us. So at the end of the day, it turns out that our biggest competition is really the everyday experience of that person as a consumer. And we have to really rethink our notion of what it means to be client-centric. The temptation is to try to separate our professional selves from our personal or consumer selves. But this is impossible unless you're a robot. We as humans can't really separate the different parts of the self from each other. Second, we can no longer tell someone to do something and get away with it or expect it to happen. Command by authority is just not a thing anymore. It's effectively dead in much of today's world. Third, we have to be adaptable. With smaller teams, be it from the use of agile or DevOps practices, being startups, having centralized org structures, being on cross-functional teams, or organizations just being flatter, things are very fluid today. Even managers are being repurposed. Again, the traditional moving up the ladder is becoming less and less relevant. Fourth, there is a real shortage today of connectors and catalysts. These are the people who actually make everything work across functions and areas. Everybody wants to be specialists, and this has really created a big gap for people who can be a bridge and understand all that's involved. I've seen too many organizations that are kind of stuck at waiting for people to change because of this. Fifth, catalysts and connectors are really just kind of interesting roles to be in, and they have implicitly become critical in the success of anything data. Though without all the fanfare, these are the people that everybody trusts. They are like your go-to people. They command respect and trust by what they mean to the rest of the organization and to the professional world. Unfortunately, too often their importance goes unrecognized. And finally, there will always be people, even with all the advances in artificial intelligence, at least for the foreseeable future. It seems like we understand each other less and less each day, like there's more conflict we have to deal with. We're not saying that we have to be best friends with everybody. We don't even have to like them. But we do have to work with them and work with them effectively.